It's a Sunday morning and now we are reminding you how to be happy just in case you forgot or how you're struggling to maintain it. I have a professional brain gym trainer and practitioner who says we can be our own causes of unhappiness. A very good morning to you and welcome to ANN7, Hanna Kok. So firstly, how did you become a brain gym trainer? To be honest with you, this is the first time I've ever heard of something like that.
Well, brain gym has been around since the late 1970s, and it was actually quite a coincidence how I got involved, because at the time I was living in rural Lesotho and I had a visitor that was a brain gym trainer. She was from the United States, and she loved so much coming to Lesotho that she trained me up to become one of the first brain gym practitioners and trainers in South Africa.
Now, what does it entail?
Basically what we do is that we switch our brain on through movement. We think that we need to study hard. I'm not saying you mustn't study, that's the last thing I'll say. But we have this idea that if you want to study and increase your intelligence, you've got to sit still and read a book. And
of course,
the opposite is actually true, that our brain needs movement in order to learn. Because when we use our body, then we activate the brain and we can get the different parts of the brain to communicate with each other.
Now, how different is this from other forms of training?
Well, the main thing is that, you know, if you look at your life and the way you perceive life, you've got a conscious brain and a subconscious. Okay. Now, the conscious brain processes about 40 pieces of information per second. But the subconscious brain, have you got any idea how much that could process? If your conscious brain produces or deals with 40 pieces of information per second, the subconscious, any idea?
No, I have no idea.
40 million pieces of information.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so if you want to change the way you perceive life and the way you deal with things, you have to make a change on the subconscious level.
Okay.
And that's why so many people fail. They say, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. But if it's only in the conscious brain, it's not in the subconscious. And when they're in conflict, the subconscious always wins. Now with brain gym, because we use movement to facilitate the change,
okay,
you now make a change on a subconscious level. And then it feels much more natural to keep the change, to hold it.
So how do you actually activate that change from the conscious brain to the subconscious brain?
There are different techniques, but
okay,
the first thing is you've got to set a goal.
All right.
And then what we do in a session, you make a person aware of where they are at. How does their body feel? And which part of the body is actually not supporting you for your goal? For example, if you have as a goal to read easily, and you think you have to work on the brain, but in the meantime, your eyes might be struggling to move
yes,
smoothly back and forth along the page.
Okay.
So then we work on that. With that, we make a subconscious shift, and then reading becomes much easier.
So how have people responded to this sort of training? How do they contact you? How would one find a brain gym trainer?
You have to Google it. Google will find you just about everything. Now, if you Google brain gym in South Africa, then I'm also heading brain gym in South Africa.
Okay.
I'm one of the leading people there. And then there's a list of trainers. We are all over the country. We have some trainers that train also all over the country. You could come for an individual consultation. You can come for training, and that's how you can.
So what has the response been like?
No, we've had good response. I mean,
okay,
the only thing is, as you said, a lot of people haven't heard of it, although we've been in the country for quite a while. And because it's so different, then it's taken a while to get into mainstream.
Let's just discuss some of the other benefits. You did mention, you know, the example of being able to study. It could possibly help you, you know, being able to study or concentrate. What other sorts of benefits does brain training give? Well,
the brain gym, you know, if you look at the difficulties we have in schools nowadays, what are the problems that we have? We have a lot of aggression, a lack of concentration, etc. If you look at what those symptoms mean, where do they come from? It's actually that people are in stress mode. And that's one of the reasons why people are struggling to be happy, is that we're so much in stress that we go into our survival mode. Now, when you're in survival mode, your survival brain, your back brain takes over, which is very much action, reaction, fight or flight, defend your territory. And your wisdom, which sits here in the frontal lobe, switches off up to 86%. So physiologically, it's very difficult to concentrate. And you're now in this aggressive mode, and that causes then you to, why you see so much aggression in schools and the lack of concentration. We've seen with teachers that do brain gym in the classroom, and it doesn't take a lot. During the day, it's maybe 5 or 10 minutes, a bit here and there. The children calm down, they concentrate better, they take responsibility for their own growth. There's a huge change in them when they do that.
Okay, now Hanna, I just want to talk about your book. It's called Happily Ever After, Make Your Relationships Flourish. So you've written this book, and we did introduce that you mentioned that we can control our own happiness, and of course we are the cause against our unhappiness. Tell us a bit about your book.
Well, the thing is, what the book is about is that if we want to be happy, there's one step we have to take first. And that is that we need to realize that I am responsible for my happiness, and you're responsible for your happiness. We can help each other to be happy, but the final response lays with me, because everything you experience today, you're linking it back to your past. And those memories that your experiences, nobody can influence that, they are yours. So if you had some traumatic events, and everybody's had some, you end up linking this event back to some trauma in the past, and then you see this as a threat, or you take it personally. Now, what I always say to people, why don't you invest some time and maybe some money to learn how to change those things, how to undo some of that trauma? It's not that difficult. Definitely doesn't take years of psychotherapy. Just 1 or 2 sessions, you can do a lot. And then you start associating the current events with different events, happier events, and that's how you can regain your happiness.
So what was the inspiration behind this book?
Good question. Well, first of all, I love relationships. I mean, I have been married for the second time now. I'm married for the second time, but I lost my husband, the first one, through death. And I lived for 12 years in a rural village in Lesotho. Here it was just my husband and I in the local community, and then you really get to know yourself. And when you fight, we didn't have a telephone, or we couldn't run away, so you really had to do some, looking inside. So that's where already a lot of my passion for relationships came from. I used to say, I don't know what makes him tick, but I for sure know what makes him explode.
Thank you very much, Hanna. It was absolutely lovely having you in studio. I wish you all the success for your book. That was Hanna Kok. She is the writer of Happily Ever After, as well as a brain gym trainer and practitioner.